Welcome to the Gentleman's Guide to Gaming. The smog sits heavy on the road in front of you. You can barely see the palm of your hand in front of your face, so thick is the air. You find yourself staggering, stumbling, shambling. Are you drunk? No. Are you hungover? Perhaps. You're not even sure how you got here, how you got into this state. The last few nights have been a blur, a complete blur. You find yourself careening into a lady of the night. It can only be by the way she shrieks, cackles, hits you with her bag, and then makes her way off into the darkness, the thick pea soup. You can barely say sorry before she has disappeared out of sight and you are left alone in the smog once more. You find yourself resting your back against one of the brick walls. Where are you? You're in London, that's for sure. You look down. Whitechapel. Yes, things are starting to become clear now. Your memory is starting to come back. Is your head bleeding? No? You scratch it. Scab. Someone hit you over the head. How long have you been out? How long have you been unconscious? Are you concussed? Should you see a doctor? No, there is a reason you are here. There is a reason you are in Whitechapel. There is a reason you are stumbling in this direction. You start to check your pockets. The first thing you find is a wallet. It's your own. You're sure of it. It marks you out as a private investigator. No, not private. Investigator on the estate of the Queen. Well, that's interesting. You continue to rummage. A card for the Hellfire Club. That would gain you admittance, but why would you ever want to gain access to that debauched gentleman's establishment? You find a gun attached to your belt. That's strange, you don't even know how to fire one. You begin to search your other pockets. What's this, a letter? Inviting you to a house in Whitechapel, saying, come see the show. How very odd indeed. But not only that, you find, what, is that a lump of rock? You examine it. It has what appears to be a Star of David on, the thing that so many of the inhabitants of London have recently taken to emblazing on the Jewish homesteads hereabouts. But inside that star there is an eye, and it seems to be looking at you. You don't recognise the symbol, and yet you feel safe just by having it on you. You put it back in your pocket, and you begin your stumbling ascent through the streets of Whitechapel. You feel inexorably drawn towards the alley at the end. You're beginning to remember it all now. You know why you're here. You've been investigating some of the deaths hereabouts. Some of the women who have been eviscerated, disemboweled. The ones by Saucy Jack, as the papers have begun to call him. But not just that. A lady-in-waiting to the Queen. Yes, a lady-in-waiting that was apparently having an affair with one of the Queen's many nephews. Yes. The lady-in-waiting was killed in a similar manner to that of Jack the Ripper's victims, but this one wasn't reported in the papers. According to the newspaper article that documented her death, she committed suicide, but upon seeing her body you saw that there was no way a man or woman could be driven to kill him or herself in that manner. Multiple stabs to the abdomen and complete removal of the bowels. And a weird symbol carved into her chest. Something that you could not explain. Perhaps that is why you went to the Hellfire Club, that group of masons and the like. Perhaps you thought they would recognise the symbology. You find yourself still drawn down the street. Your wife, you feel like your wife is in danger, your wife is in peril. Yes, you presented to her some of the evidence. She's always had an inquisitive mind, she's always been a fantastic investigator. Second to you, it is only due to the birth of your children that she has stayed at home, and it was her that put two and two together. Yes, she pointed you in this direction, you recall that now. And you remember now that she was in danger. Something about what she said, something about what you dropped in a conversation, using her name, has put her in danger. But you can't remember why. You find yourself making your way down that alley that increasingly narrows, more so than you imagined any streets to do in London. You find yourself walking sideways just to fit through it and pop out the other end, and find yourself in a square. Looking from the backs of buildings, houses, stores. No doors there. There is only one building there with a door. Flames seem to lick up on the insides of the windows of this house. Chanting can be heard from within, a chanting in a foreign tongue. Is that Hebrew? No, is Arabic? Is it a cross between the two? You recognise it. There is a warmth. It is the only light that you can make out through the smog coming from this house. There is something that's drawing you in. And so, gripping your revolver, you test the front door. It is unlocked, almost welcoming. You charge in. You know that your wife is inside. There is something foul going on here, and you have made your way back just via instinct alone. Either that or something has drawn you. That is an option you do not wish to consider. As you make your way down to the cellar from where the chanting is coming, the sight that greets you, what they have done to your wife, makes you want to empty your stomach. You quaveringly hold up your gun and let off a shot. Not to kill the mad cultist that's standing there, shouting Ya Ya Cthulhu Fatagan, but to shoot your wife, and what she has become. Her eyes, like tulips, expanding in a flourish of petals that are in fact tendrils emanating from her sockets. Her mouth opens and lets out a scream that is far from human, and she shambles towards you, a ghoul freshly made by a Dr. Moreau of Whitechapel. This is a review of Cthulhu by Gaslight, and apologies for the lengthy opening, but I sometimes get caught up in my own words. I do like to ramble a bit. Cthulhu by Gaslight is an expansion to the Call of Cthulhu horror role-playing game, 6th edition, and as 7th edition is coming out very soon, it's on Kickstarter. In fact, it will probably be done on Kickstarter by the time this review goes up. I thought I'd cover this. I ran it at the UK Games Expo. You may have seen the recap if I put that up yet. And Cthulhu by Gaslight is actually one of my favourite settings for Call of Cthulhu. This is ultimately a setting book. But if you like Victorian era, if you like Victoriana, steampunk, if you like the tales of Jack the Ripper, Sherlock Holmes, and Sherlock Holmes is very much in vogue right now, of course, if you enjoy the works of Oscar Wilde or Charles Dickens, if you like the tales of, let's see, Mary Shelley or Bram Stoker, Cthulhu by Gaslight is certainly for you. There are certain changes that exist within this game that are different to Call of Cthulhu, and just to recap, the basic role-playing system that goes into Cthulhu by Gaslight is simply a percentile system. You have a certain percentage in any given skill, apologies, and you want to score below that percentage. Now, for the most part, that means that characters have got to be highly specialised, because if they have 20% in every single skill, they are more likely than not to fail. That is how the basic role-playing system works. Characters complement one another if you want a chance of success, and kind of makes sense from a party balance standpoint, and also character-driven. A bunch of lugheads are less likely to go around investigating because they may not have the will to do so, but if you put a doctor in there, a lawyer in there, a brave sailor, and maybe some kind of socialite, a dilettante, then that makes more sense than a bunch of dock workers who are trying to bring down a Cthulhu cult. But, you know, go with what you like. There are certain differences in here. The profession templates, such as antiquarian, aristocrat. You also have, you have the age-old favourite, the dilettante, and of course all of the other favourites, such as author, soldier, clergyman, and spy. You also have character traits, and I love character traits. It's at the beginning of character creation. You just roll a d6 followed by a d20, and you can have any number of these character traits that automatically afflict your character, and I think really add to character building. That can include, just speak something as simple as clumsy. You double all fumble chances. You could be a collector of coins, books, insects, art, jewellery, historic artefacts, etc. You could be eagle-eyed and get plus 2d3 times 5% to spot hidden. You could be a gambler. You could be a good judge of human nature. You could own an old book or be obsessed with appearance. You could be an orphan. You could speak another language. You could have an unexpected ally, a rare skill, a pet, anything like that. And this can really throw characters an odd turn in character creation, but I found it really helps just make players rethink their characters automatically, makes them think on the spot, okay, why would I have this character trait? And I think it's an excellent little addition to the basic role-playing system. The book itself also contains details on all the weapons of the time, the likely weapons that you'd have in a Victorian era, a Gaslight era of Cthulhu, rather than the modern weapons and the 20s weapons that they have later. You have various fantastic Victoriana-based adverts in this book as well that you can just print out and use as as little props, little posters like let's see, the Chiswick Shakespeare art wall and ceiling papers and so on. I just love the amount of detail that's gone into this, including the conversion rate for shillings and pence and guineas and so on. The cost of gents' clothes, ladies' clothes, and the various tools that you would be able to get in the Victorian era. You've got lovely illustrations of what people may dress like. Of course, not everyone goes around in a deerstalker cap, like Sherlock Holmes might. And then, possibly the best part of this book, not my favourite, but possibly the best for all others concerned, is a history of the 1890s and around that era, the 19th century, late 19th century, that covers how the Cthulhu mythos was expanding at that time, or the various Lovecraftian beastie mythos, and history in general, and various notary figures like Oscar Wilde or H.G. Wells and George Bernard Shaw, Bram Stoker and so on, how they could play into a game. You could have them have cameo roles. Think of the way that Doctor Who always goes back to the 19th century and bumps into someone like Charles Dickens or Sherlock Holmes. It makes for a fantastic game if you can have Oscar Wilde just show up all of a sudden, I think. You've got an excellent map of London in it, and it's all broken down between what you'd find in London, the sorts of stores that you'd find there, the kinds of technology that would be there, an excellent map of the UK of the time, or Great Britain rather, and indeed also the underworld of the United Kingdom, including stats and description on Jack the Ripper. Now, beyond that, you also have detail on all of the regions, counties and cities of the UK, and the occult organisations like the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, the spiritualism movement that was boosted in the late 19th century, and a selected appendix of various interesting occult sites that exist during the era of Cthulhu by Gaslight. However, what I like more than anything else in this book is the inclusion of interesting fictional characters of the time, just so you can put them or versions of them in your game. And they range from Alan Quatermain, Buffalo Bill, or Quatermain, sorry, I'm thinking of Quatermass, Captain Nemo, Count Dracula, so you've got your League of Extraordinary Gentlemen building up there, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, Dr. Moreau, Dorian Gray, Fu Manchu and the Invisible Man. You can have Martians, and this is my favourite part, Martians from War of the Worlds, detailed to the point where the Martian war machines are statted up. You can play War of the Worlds in Call of Cthulhu, and I am so excited that I will be running this at some point. That is by far my favourite part of this entire book. You have the Martian war machines, the red weed, all of that detailed, and if you love Jeff Wayne's musical of the War of the Worlds, you'll know all of that. It's brilliant. You have the Phantom of the Opera, Professor Challenger, Van Helsing, Moriarty, Sherlock Holmes, of course, and Dr. Watson, Varney the Vampire, Spring-Heeled Jack, Victor Frankenstein, and his creation. And on top of that, you have templates for all those types of characters, so you can just create loads of them on the fly. Several scenarios that you can run in this. I particularly like, I think it's the one called The Burnt Man, which is a brilliant adventure. And there's Sir William Burning there. I just love Cthulhu by Gaslight. It is such a brilliant source book. It is relatively inexpensive, and to be honest, as far as source books go, it's a pretty good size as well. I think this has everything you could possibly need in it to run a game, not just Call of Cthulhu, in the Victorian era. It's got other great old ones detailed in this, more in keeping with the mythos of the time, but you don't need to use them. You can use the ones from the main rulebook if you want. And what can I say? I think this book is so rich in setting and detail, and so many ideas just fly off the page. It even comes with a detachable map of Victorian era London that you can roll out for your players, and I don't know many role players that don't like a good map. You've even got maps of the moors in the back of the book. really, if you like Call of Cthulhu, I've got to ask you what you are waiting for, because this game has everything that you need to play Call of Cthulhu in the Victorian setting, which has so many opportunities, and as it's such an interesting time at the cusp of spiritualism, where when it's at its real height, I think you'd be foolish not to try running a Call of Cthulhu adventure at that time and involve all of those fantastic pieces of fiction that exist around then. Thank you very much for watching.